Okay, admittedly, this could be a problem. Okay, so the budget bill, the big beautiful bill as they put it passed the House. It finally got through the House and now it's going through the Senate. So that bill that they put forward, the big beautiful bill, it's about 1,000 pages in length. So if you're going to read it, you really need to be careful to make sure that you're reading everything. Right within a certain part of this bill, and I've only seen really a few guys actually talk about this, there's one section that talks about the courts. It's kind of relevant that it's talking about the courts because the courts are the last checks and balance that could hold the executive to task. Trump, who continuously says that he will follow the rules of judges that are put forward, we know that he's kind of been testing the waters to see what it is that he can get away with. And so far, he's been getting away with quite a lot because they can make a ruling, but there's only so much that they could utilize to actually carry those rulings out. Hence, the subsection in this bill. So hear this. Listen to this part. No court of the United States may use appropriated funds to enforce a contempt citation for failure to comply with an injunction or temporary restraining order if no security was given when the injunction or order was issued. The provision would make existing injunctions in antitrust cases, police reform cases, school desegregation cases, and others unenforceable. It serves no purpose but to weaken the power of the federal courts. In short, if this bill passes with this provision in it, it's going to be a really long 4 years.
Damn!
So if the executive now wants to put forward a bill that removes the funding from the federal courts, then there is no means by which they could actually enforce their rulings. In short, courts be damned. The only one that actually is a law unto themselves is the executive, Trump. They're so caught up talking about this bill and how it's going to hurt people and how they're going to strip away people's rights and how they're going to give to the rich. And all of that is important. You have a Republican majority in the Supreme Court. You have a Republican majority in the House and in the Senate. So why is it that they would still feel the need to put in this provision? Well, it's because, they're kind of losing in all their court cases. Remember, they had a whole discussion about this bill in the dead of night.
This isn't reasonable. It does not make sense. This isn't transparent to hold hearings at 3 a.m. on a bill of this size and this scope and this scale. That's not in the best interest of the country. You could just as easily delay it 5 hours, let the American public have an opportunity to listen to this debate, and then vote on the bill on Thursday. And all of you could go home for the district work period. So this false sense of urgency for 5 or 6 hours makes no sense. And again, I understand that's your rationale. I think the American people are smarter than the House Republican caucus are giving them credit for. They know what this is about, and when they wake up, invariably, later this morning, and they find that this bill was reported out of this committee in the dead of night, I think they'll reach their own conclusions about House Republicans' commitment or lack thereof to transparency.
Are you okay with the nationwide injunction issued by one single federal judge?
We'll get to that part, Mr. Jordan. Let's complete the analysis on this piece, because to your point, as you said, this particular provision doesn't require a specific amount of security. It's essentially saying to the federal court it has to require some security. And my point is that this is a deep deviation from existing federal law. This has never been the case. We've never said to constituents, hold on, Mr. Jordan, I'll give you the chance to respond. We've never said to American citizens and constituents that in order to vindicate their rights in federal court, they're going to be required to provide a security when their constitutional rights have been violated by their government. And I find it astounding. I'm not sure that many of your colleagues understand the full import of this. They will by the time this gets to the floor. I imagine there will be a lot of limited government advocates who will find deep reasons to be concerned about this type of provision, because as you could imagine, it will preclude folks from being able to vindicate their constitutional rights. Now, I would also say the way that you have written it, as you've noted, it's retroactive, right? So this applies to any...
I just want to say the situation we're trying to address is what's been happening around the country.
You didn't write it that way.
As you know, a single federal judge gets cases brought to the judge. They waive the security and then issue a decision that applies nationwide to all immigrants who are in that situation.
Why didn't you put nationwide in this language?
Well, we can look at the language. I mean,
it's
but I'm
6
gonna
a.m. You're voting on this thing in like 10 hours. What are we talking about?
So certain rulings that would be infected, like preliminary injunctions, temporary restraining orders that were issued, their attempt to also remove temporary permanent residents, and even the one that we all know about that they haven't done yet, which is facilitating the return of Kilmar Garcia. So Representative Joe Neguse, I hope I didn't butcher his name, but he was speaking on the Midas touch, and here's what he even had to say about it.
What are some of the most dangerous aspects of this bill?
How much time do you have, right? So I can spend a lot of time with you going through the parade of horribles embedded in this bill. I'll just first say the cuts to Medicaid really are catastrophic, right? You're talking about a lot of people, millions of Americans, a lot of folks back in Colorado, in the rural parts of Colorado that I represent, who are going to be thrown off of their health care if this bill becomes law. You're talking about veterans, right? Seniors who are receiving skilled nursing care. You're talking about the SNAP cuts, right? That are devastating for families, for single mothers and children, so many more. And then, of course, you've got all of these various measures that they have snuck into the bill in the dead of night, right? So midnight public land sales, where they're literally auctioning off hundreds of thousands of acres of public lands in Nevada and Utah across the Rocky Mountain West. You've got this ridiculous contempt provision that you referenced that was the subject of an exchange between me and Chairman Jordan, which basically would attempt to try to stop federal courts or limit the ability of federal courts to enforce contempt orders. Why? Because they know that they are, the Trump administration, losing in virtually every court in the land. And as a result, in their effort, in terms of the campaign that they're waging against the judiciary and the Article 3 branch of our government, they've decided that this would be the latest salvo in that effort. It's plainly unconstitutional, but they're going to go forward anyway. So yeah, there's a lot in this bill that would have a negative impact on the people that we're so privileged to represent, which is why we're fighting so hard against it.
One of the problems that's glaring is people seem to have a problem with the budget without really considering how dangerous this ruling is if that provision is allowed to be snuck in.
Girls, listen, this is the weekend we honor the service and sacrifice of the finest among us. You know, more than 1 million that died to defend this nation. I don't think they served and sacrificed to leave our children completely mortgaged, their future and their prospects diminished because of it. So we need to be responsible. The first goal of our budget reconciliation process should be to reduce the deficit. This actually increases it. But let me describe the mess. President Obama averaged about $910 billion of deficits per year. President Trump in his first 3 years averaged about 810. Then COVID hit, over $3 trillion in deficit. It should have ended there. We should have immediately returned to a pre-pandemic level spending, but President Biden averaged $1.9 trillion of deficits over his 4 years. And according to CBO, those deficits now average $2.2 trillion over the next 10 years. We'll add $22 trillion. And I'm sorry, the House bill would probably add, I've calculated $4 trillion. You're saying you have these independent analysts saying it's 3.3 to 4 trillion. I agree with that. We have to reduce the deficit, and so we need to focus on spending. So you don't defeat the deep state by funding it.
Right. So what changes are you going to push for in this bill when the Senate takes it up? You want to make $6 trillion in spending cuts over the next decade, you say. Just for comparison, that's the equivalent of almost the entire federal budget from last year. Here's where all that money went last year. We're just holding up a chart. You already know the percentages here of how much is going to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the Pentagon, and on and on. Where would you make cuts?
Well, first of all, you take a different approach. You don't start at $7 trillion with completely unjustified level spending and then subject yourself to death by 1,000 cuts. You start with a reasonable pre-pandemic level spending. You've heard people talk about zero-based budgeting. I'm talking about a budget of 5.5 to 6.5 trillion. Those are options from Clinton, Obama, and Trump, where you just take their actual outlays, plus them up by population growth and inflation, leaving Social Security, Medicare, and interest untouched. That would leave you somewhere between 5.5 and 6.5 trillion dollars. So you start there, but you have to do the work, and you need the time to do the work. I have to believe when you go through $7,000 billion of spending, if you go by it line by line, like DOJ has done, you will find hundreds of billions of dollars, and I've proven this in terms of where the spending occurs, hundreds of billions of dollars of spending that if you eliminate, nobody would even notice it other than the grifters who are sucking down the waste, fraud, and abuse.
So President Trump has suggested
So you got to do the work.
Yeah. President Trump has suggested that the debt is not really top of mind of his concerns. He wants Republicans to fall in line. He wants Republicans to pass the bill. You told CNN, quote, somebody's got to be the dad that says, I know y'all want to go to Disney World, but we can't afford it. I guess I'm going to be that guy, unquote. So how determined are you to be that guy if it actually means telling President Trump you are going to vote against the bill and you're going to try to get other Republican senators to join you unless there are major, major changes?
Well, in 2010, I sprang out of the Tea Party movement, and as I did parades, I would shout, this is a fight for freedom. We are mortgaging our children's future. It's wrong. It's immoral. It has to stop. I haven't changed. My campaign promise in 2010 and every campaign after that was to stop mortgaging our children's future. It's immoral. It's wrong. It has to stop. And so he may not be worried about that. I am extremely worried about that. That is my primary goal running for Congress. This is our moment.
Here's the thing. If that bill goes through with that provision still in it, then what you will see right in front of your eyes is that there's more than one way to crown a king. So this would become reality. But let's see what happens. That is all I got for now. Whatever your thoughts are, leave them in the comment section. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like, and I will see you again on the next one. Be easy, y'all.